Working in your zone of genius is a recipe for success. And we often become genius at something by going through it the hard way. And all of us have experienced a painful experience, but a lot of people just get mired down in that. One of the things I love about health coaches is they have an opportunity to alchemize their pain into purpose. And when you do, it is powerfully attractive. And so today I have an amazing guest, one of my favorite people on this planet, Lisbeth Overton. Hi, Lisbeth. She is coming in all the way from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she has been an excellent example of someone who's overcome a very rare condition, a painful, debilitating, painful condition, cervical dystonia. She's going to tell us more about what all that is. But she has taken her painful experience and paved the way to make life easier, better, healthier, easier for so many people. Um, and a lot of people are afraid, a lot of health coaches are afraid of going and having a narrow niche. They don't want to pigeonhole themselves. They could help everybody, and then they end up helping no one. But you are a shining example of trusting me, for example, of to narrow that niche. Because the narrower the niche, the faster the stream of that clients. And we're going to talk about how you've been able to stand out from the crowd and really carve out an area of expertise and serve an underserved community. Like if nobody's serving them because it's not that common, all the more reason they need your help if you know how to help them. So, welcome, Lisbeth, and just fill us in a little bit about um, what was your life like before becoming a health coach? What was your career? Were you always into health? Tell us a little bit about that before story.
Yes, well, thank you so much for being here. This is such a thrill to be here and to have your guidance on this narrow niche in this health coaching thing. I have been into health and wellness basically since I came out of the womb. I have been a registered nurse for 26 years, had an incredible career. And ironically, I remember having this very vivid vision when I was between 6 and 8 years old, laying on, I can still hear the crumple of the paper in the nurse's office in elementary school, staring at the ceiling and just something was just off and I was stressed out and I didn't know how to deal with the stress. So I went to the nurse. It was very comforting.
Yeah.
And so I had this vision when I was there of being a coach for women and just helping, being supportive to women, being an inspirational speaker or something to that effect. And I've been a nurse for 26 years. Before I was a nurse, though, I got my degree in sports fitness management. It's like everybody in our families in medicine. Well, my sister is an attorney. And so I have been into health and wellness for a really, really long time and have been so blessed to have such a really a prolific career in the healing arts. It's been an
Yeah.
honor.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that that you were in the nurse's office having that vision led you to a 26-year career nursing career. But for a 6-year-old, what exactly did you envision? Because most 6-year-olds, like, are not envisioning like being a coach or something. But what exactly was it that you like? What did you see yourself speaking on stages, or what was the aspect of or the kind of the feel
Well,
of
it
it that
must have
you
been the
had?
vibe of the nurse, like feeling that feeling of comfort and safety. And so, yeah, like I could see myself behind a microphone on a stage, like just lifting the energy of the space so that it's more energetic, it's like this so that because I didn't like feeling overwhelmed and stressed and really panicky. And so I would go there and it's like if I could just be that for other women. I mean, I
Yeah.
was a 6 to 8 year old. I just felt it was like I was being called. Like it wasn't up for negotiation. It
Yeah.
was a pull.
Yeah. It's interesting, I invite our listeners to kind of contemplate. Was there a time when you were little when you had kind of almost a flash forward of what your life could be like. And maybe you've lived into it, or maybe you're still on the path to find it, or you forgot about it and you're dusting it off. I had a incident when I was, you're reminding me of a story when I was little. I just was thinking of that now, and I would be about 7 years old, about around the same age. And brownies, there's Girl Guides and brownies. So I was like, I was in brownies, and it was a camp. And then all of a sudden, 100-mile winds came up, and we had our little tent, and I'm in with, I don't know, maybe 4 other 7-year-old girls in our little pup tent. And they were hysterical.
Oh,
And I immediately went into leader role and calming them down and soothing them. And and just like, it's going to be okay. This is what we're going to do. You're all right. We're okay here. And I'm, at one point, I'm like, I'm the same age as them. I don't know what I'm doing either.
yeah.
but being that leader, and I'm like, why am I not hysterical like these girls that are screaming? Because it was pretty, it was scary. Things were blowing and trees were blowing over and all of a sudden, and they hadn't got to our tent yet to come and rescue us and put us in station wagons for the night to sleep in while the tents went off. But it's interesting, and certainly, the leadership role is what I've been, and a follower and a student, but certainly that teacher leadership role has come up again and again. So I'm curious, and pop in the comments. Did you ever get any insights, either like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do, or potentially it's exact opposite? Like, it's like, I'm gonna definitely do something opposite. So it's interesting. Maybe we all have those little insights. So then, what was it that had you leave your 26-year nursing career to become a health coach? What happened there? Why did you want to become a health coach?
Everything was just going along, roses and unicorns. And I was on this trajectory. I had intended to leave my day job as a nurse to fulfill this vision that I've had since I was 6 years old. And lo and behold, the universe gifted me the most incredible experience called cervical dystonia. I acquired this rare neurological disorder, and I use the word gobsmacked. It gobsmacked me, my life, my career, every single thing that I had known and I had done got
Mhm.
flipped upside down.
Yeah,
And what's interesting about sharing these visions that we have is that, what's that saying? Hindsight's 2020.
yeah, yeah,
And also, like, sometimes we need a little distance from something to be able to appreciate the brevity or the depth of it,
yeah,
and the chokehold that it literally has on us. It took me 7 years of navigating this horrible situation
yeah,
for me to stand outside of it and say, oh my gosh, like, what you have been through over the last 7 years is insane. And it might put most people under the ground,
yeah,
dead. And what's interesting again about reflection is I have been meditating religiously for 7 years. Well, the universe, I believe, always gives us what we need, but when we need it, but maybe before we need it. And it was like, oh, now I know why I'm a practice meditator, because if I hadn't been practicing meditation, I would be 6 feet under.
So
And
let me just clarify, were you meditating before you got cervical dystonia?
yeah,
For like
yeah.
7 years before?
Well,
Yeah.
let me see. I was diagnosed, and so actually around the same amount of time that I've been meditating the same amount of time that I received my diagnosis, actually.
And is that what started you meditating, or no?
No, I was on this spiritual quest, like some of us, just
Yeah,
like I could check off all the boxes of proverbial success, and yet I felt so empty.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, first of all, what's up with this? And why do I feel bad for feeling bad that I want something more? So I was on this spiritual sojourn. And so I was like, oh, okay, this has prepared me for this. And so,
Now that's in hindsight, and before
yeah,
we get too far into things, And certainly didn't think cervical dystonia was a gift. And I know that most people out there are like, what the heck is cervical dystonia? What are you talking about? And just how debilitating it is. And I know you have before and after pictures, I think on your website and on social media that gives an image of what that is, and where you were at before. But just explain to our viewers, because I even know amongst health coaches and amongst our community, I'll say, who here has ever heard of this before Lisbeth started talking about it? And nobody, like nobody had even heard of it, whether they were doctors or nurses, or like it's not a common thing. So like, so just explain, what is cervical dystonia? What were you going through? And yeah, you came to this realization, but at the beginning it was not fun at all. So just give us a little picture of how did it start? What is it? And just tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, no, thank you for this opportunity to bring awareness to this. So cervical dystonia, cervical is denoting the cervical spine. So your neck, it affects so the head, the neck, and the shoulders. And dystonia has to do with tone. Okay, so cervical dystonia is a neurological disorder, which means the root of this condition starts in the brain.
Mm.
And you have an area in your brain that tells your body when and how to move. Again, like we do not think about, unless you've been in a car accident or you've had a stroke, you do not think about, like, how would you tell someone how to walk? You just do it, right? It's
Right.
a subconscious. So what happens is the communication in the brain is, we don't know why. It is like firing at the wrong time, and it also happens to be firing the wrong information. So, and they're doing more and more research about this. I mean, the brain is one of the most complex organs in the body, and there's so much going on. And so what can happen is, and the other thing about this diagnosis is that while there are these similarities and requirements for a clinical diagnosis, no two people present the same way, which is a problem to try to
Mhm.
diagnose it.
Yeah.
So what what can present in a physical manifestation is you can have a lateral just means side,
Mhm.
one side or another, your head can tilt, or you can have an anterior, which is forward, or posterior, which is backwards. So that's one of the things that your head can be doing. And then you
And it
have
kind of
these,
get and it does that involuntarily and sticks like that. You know,
yeah,
it's like,
so
because we
so
can
it,
all move our head around, but no,
yeah,
you're not trying to do it. It's just doing it. It's just doing it. And then you can't move
yeah.
back. Yeah.
So the first thing is like your head position forward, backward, or side to side. And then the other component is your neck can start to twist to one side or the other. And again, everyone can present differently. So in my case, I had a left lateral tilt. So my head was going like this and it was stuck like this. Not only was this happening, my neck was twisted to the right. So it's kind of hard for me to demonstrate.
Right. Yeah. Because it doesn't do
However,
it normally. Yeah. It's
yeah,
not normally what we do. Yeah.
on an X-ray, an MRI, the C1, your atlas, and C2, the second cervical vertebra, they were literally like transfixed, going the opposite directions. And so the way that this presented to me, my husband and I are watching Netflix. We're just sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden my head goes. And I was like, I'm a nurse. I was like, I know that's not normal, but I really want to act like that didn't just happen.
Yeah.
Like, because that is not normal.
Yeah.
And so I was like, crap. And so we watched the TV show. And then the second thing that started happening was, again, we do not pay attention to what our body's doing. It just does it.
Mhm.
I'm a coffee drinker. And in the morning, when I would go to tilt my head back, like, have you ever thought of what you're doing when you're drinking your water? You sip
You
your
just
straw,
do it.
like
Yeah. You
you
just
do
do
it.
it.
So I started to tip my head back. And this is the only way I can describe it. And those of us who have dystonia can relate. It's like my neck went off track. It's like your neck should just stay in the same position to get
Yeah.
the jerk. And it would like go to the left because that's how this is
Yeah.
the orientation I was going. And I was like, oh God, like we got two things now. This is not looking
Yeah.
good. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh God, I got to go to the doctor. I went to my doctor. She said, you need to see a neurologist. I went to my appointment and I gave him my subjective reports. And he said, "Oh, you have cervical dystonia." And I was like, "What? What's that?" And I made the mistake. Please do not Google cervical dystonia. Please just find me.
Yes, that's a good recommendation. I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a nurse for 26 years, I had never heard of this condition. And I don't even want to share what I took away, okay? Because we don't do negative energy here.
Yeah.
I just was gobsmacked because I was like, I'm so healthy. What, where did things go sideways?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's how it showed up. And the thing that's the most common is that none of us are expecting this.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
Like none of us. So it's very alarming
Yeah.
when your body just starts moving on its own and you have no volition, you have no voluntary control. And the other thing that's so that can be challenging is that you just want to look normal. And so
Yeah.
if your head is doing something involuntarily, the
Yeah.
first thing that we try to do, we try to fight it.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like, oh dear Lord. So if you think you're exhausted now, you go get cervical dystonia.
Right, because you're spending all that energy to fight
Yeah.
something that's going in a different direction. And then there's ramifications. So it's not just the movement, it's not just how it looks, it's not just that you can't have your coffee and your water anymore. And it's not that you can't just watch your Netflix, but you now can't drive. Because you can't be driving with your head looking over there. You can't be doing that, and you may or may not be able to work, and the things start, and it's painful, and there's anxiety, and there's fear, and it's not just a simple twist of the neck. And then when you go to the doctors, like, all right, okay, I got it, fix it. And then what do they say?
They're like, well, there's no cure for this. Well, if you tell someone there is no cure for something, it's like Charlie Brown. Just what?
Yes. Yeah.
You are so that's where gobsmacked comes from. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you mean you can't help me? Like what?
Yeah.
There's only one treatment, and that's the only FDA approved treatment is botulinum toxin. There are now 5 different um companies that have injectables. However, also deep brain stimulator is another treatment. So that's it. And
Mhm.
they don't necessarily work.
Right. And 7 years you were in that painful time of your life. So now you're fine now. You look completely great now. You're on the other side of it now. Um, and you learned a thing or two. Um, and that is now, is that why you became a health coach in the first place?
Yes, because as a nurse, as a helper bee, and as someone who was gobsmacked and horrified by what I read about what this diagnosis was or meant,
Mhm. Yeah.
I saw a massive gap in viable options that were actually helpful or that promoted our well-being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could not just sit back and not share what I knew.
Yeah. And I think that's important. Now, interestingly enough, because I remember, and now we know you as the cervical dystonia coach. I mean, that's Lisbeth Overton. Like, it's like, I want to say, look it up in the dictionary. I mean, it's not in the dictionary, but it is that synonymous. Like, you're the only person I know that has expertise in this, and legit real, like, you've got this horrible thing. And I love talking to health coaches who have been through, and that's why I say alchemize your pain into purpose, this thing that you had to deal with, your dark night of the soul, your rock bottom moment, and you were able to get on the other side of it, or a significant track record in it. Then now take that thing and be able to help somebody else with it. But the funny thing is, a lot of times in my experience, and you are no exception, but you are awesome and you followed, my suggestions. The funny thing is, even though these horrible incidents happen to people, and that inspires them to go into health coaching, because like there's limits on, like, what you really were trying to say there is, hey, people, your body's a miracle that can heal itself if we give it half a chance. Hey, let's try to see what we can do to give it half a chance, and working with them. And you just see the power of that by getting to the root cause. You just go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then you're like, you see what you did yourself, and you're like, man, I could help someone get there way faster. But then you go through, you get training, you become a health coach, and you learn about all sorts of conditions, and you learn about all sorts of modalities, and you want to help everybody in the entire planet. You really do. You're willing to, happy to. You know, at some level that you can help anybody. But then the problem is, most health coaches go out there and they end up helping nobody. They want to help everybody, but they end up helping no one. And because if people are just wanting to get healthy, they're going to the doctor or they're going to a gym, but they're not thinking of calling you at your home. And so one of the things that I teach at the Health Professional Academy and with the health coaches that I mentor is that you really got to narrow down that niche. And if we really dig into it, there's a reason why all this kind of happened. And so if you look at that thing that you just feel called to do, that you're meant to do, those things that you have that you just kind of like, you have an extra interest in, and then those things that light you, that you have a track record in, that you're expert at, that people are asking you about anyways. And that intersection of that sweet spot is that purpose driven expert niche. So when you came to us and we're like, hey, I want to help people. I want to really help people be healthier, and but I'm not sure exactly who I would want to help. And we comb through, because I always say, we mine your story for the gold that's always there. If we dig in there, there's this whole story about cervical dystonia. But part of you is like, I'm not going to tell anybody of that because hardly anybody has that. So that can't be a niche. I'll do weight loss or something else because, like, you know, I'm a rare bird. I was the one. I was like, that was just me. And, and, I mean, you might remember your vantage point of that conversation. And once I saw this, I'm like, you gotta help nurses with cervical dystonia because you're a nurse. And I'm like, help nurses with cervical dystonia. And you're like, you have two heads. You're like,
Really?
no, I can help lots of people. And I'm like, I know, but can you help them? Yeah. Do you want to help them? Yeah. Okay. So go help them. But then people are afraid of pigeonholing their niche. And then they're like, but I won't be able to help all of these people. Tell people what happened after we had that discussion, where I'm like, this is gold. Like, I don't know of anybody else who knows how to solve this on the planet. Lisbeth, you are literally the world's leading expert in this. And if there's another one, I don't know of them. So and these people are going to, the dark side. There's no cure. So and they're with it for 7 years, destroying their life. There's a huge need, and we got to get you out there and let people know that you exist, and that this potential. But do you remember like what
Yeah.
happened next year with the whole nurses with cervical dystonia?
Yeah, so we had to come to, I'll just gonna call it what it is. It was a come to Jesus meeting because no coach wants to be told you got to go way narrow. You got to get in there. It makes us throw up in our mouth. And so you told me, and then I was like, literally recalling it. I can still feel like it feels like a punch to the gut, right? Because it makes us so uncomfortable. It's like the thing that health coaches don't want to do. I told my husband, he's like, well, I mean, she's the expert here. And so I'm literally driving to my appointment to get my treatment for my cervical dystonia. And this idea pops into my head. Oh yeah, I gotta help. And maybe this was before our conversation. I can't remember the timing. I go to my appointment And I'm like, hey doc, I got a
This was
health
after. This was after. It was
after.
just
Okay.
after, like within
Okay.
a week after.
Okay. I'm like, I gotta help nurses with cervical dystonia. And literally out of her mouth, she said, I was rounding in the hospital and there was a nurse in the ICU, prone in the bed, cervical dystonia. And I was like, the angels, the Alleluia choir was, I was like, okay, I depend on signs. Okay, okay, okay.
I mean, what are the chances?
I know, like,
We have a conversation and it was within days, like within a week, and you go to an appointment and the doctor says, and you're and I said, hey, let your doctor know that you're helping people, just let them know that you're helping nurses with cervical dystonia. And I know there was trepidation about whether like that's like a ridiculous thing to help people with, because like what? And literally right then, that same morning, the doctor has not just anybody, but a nurse in ICU with cervical dystonia. That's confirmation. That's a God wink. That's a nod. That's we're on the right track, which is really like we love when we pick up on those little signposts. Okay, this is the direction that I'm supposed to go. Because you went through all of that. It was leading you to this moment so that you could help these people. And what's been the difference from when you before, when you were like helping like anybody, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then when you decide to like, I'm going to specialize in my zone of genius, I'm going to alchemize all of that pain that I went into this purpose driven expert niche, this purpose, um, soul satisfying niche and results. Like, what started to open up and happen?
well, of course, it's like if you learn a new word, you hear it and you see it everywhere. Or if you say you're going to buy a certain kind of car, you see it on every
Yeah.
billboard. We were literally sitting at our local favorite watering hole, which is a pizza joint down the street, and literally the woman right behind my husband, she has an essential trimmer. A trimmer can also be one of the manifestations of cervical
Yes.
dystonia. And I was like, I wanted to tap her on the shoulder and say, "Hello, ma'am." You know, like people with dystonia started coming out of the woodwork, and I
Yeah.
just started to like the pressure was off. It's like, dude, this is I have lived this. I
Yeah.
know what works and what
Yeah.
doesn't work. If I would have had somebody like me instead of Dr. Google,
Yeah.
the amount of suffering and just overwhelm, like I literally probably shaved a minute off of my life over that 7 years, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than a minute. So so the now the great news is, just because we narrowed down our area of expertise, just to put all the health coaches at ease here. So here's the great news. When you narrow it down and you specialize in your particular zone of genius, and you're like, yeah, but I want to help everybody. I want to help everybody. So the great news is you can help anyone you want to help with. So when you're connecting with people, you go, do they have a problem? Do they want the problem solved? Do I know how to solve it? Whether it's in your niche or not, do I know how to help them? And that's a yes or a no. And and then do I want to help them? And if they have a problem, they want it solved, you know how to solve it, by all means, offer to solve it. And that's it. And so you probably have more clients without cervical dystonia than with cervical dystonia because you pick cervical dystonia as your niche. Am I right?
Bingo.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So don't worry about pigeonholing yourself, but it's attractive and you stand out. You don't blend in with every other health coach on the planet where you guys all look alike. So own your zone, own your uniqueness. It is very powerful and you have a thriving practice. We just had you as one of those leaders on the stage with the microphone, at our recent event, showing people how it's done. I mean, you are a shining light, successful, example of what I teach. You followed that. So you're such a great example of how a narrow niche is really helpful. And just to put it into perspective, because people think that means all sorts of things, like that they can't help anybody with, weight loss or joint pain now because of, no, you can help them. We're going to go into some maybe examples of who you've helped, but I thought it's such an important story, and it was so debilitating for you, and you have such an empathy and heart for people who are going through it. um, and if nothing else, it's hope for, you know for people that, well, if she can do it, maybe I can too. Like, if nothing else, you no longer can think it's impossible. So, you've got the Dr. Google version of what's going to happen to you, and then you have Lisbeth version, your choice. Pick a door.
I want to be for people that are non-runners. Roger Bannister,
Yes, yes.
Oxford, he was the first human to run a sub 4 minute mile. And he honestly was like, he wasn't actually training that hard. And then it only took, I believe it was 47 days
Yeah,
for somebody else to beat the record. And so um there is evidence everywhere of how to do things well, and I just want to just blow people's disbelief about what's possible out of the water, because we need more examples of what is possible. And
yeah,
it doesn't take that much more money or effort. It
yeah,
just, it's
yeah,
possible. And so that is why I'm on the planet, to vibrate the possibility, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I don't care if it's cancer or dystonia
yeah,
or you
yeah,
lost a child, like,
yeah, yeah,
it's possible if you
yeah.
want it.
Yeah, yeah, there's possibilities. So who is it that what is your area of expertise? Who are you most passionate about helping?
So women, I help them overcome the fear, the pain, and the anxiety of this debilitating cervical dystonia so that they can know and live with more ease, more energy, more mobility,
Yes. Drive
fun, because
again, work again, all those
yeah,
good things. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't have to postpone joy because of this thing we call dystonia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you like best about being a health coach now? Like, what is the favorite parts that light you up?
My favorite part is having somebody like me, because I was in the health and fitness my entire life. And so here I had this physical evidence that something was really wrong or out of whack, that I
Mhm.
couldn't control. And so that really tests your faith. Like, what is up? And so I love to help people believe in the possibilities of something that they can't yet believe it in every cell of their being, but they believe it enough that it's possible. I'm like, because that's the first thing I ask people. Do you
Yeah.
believe that you could have a different experience?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if the answer is no, you're right, I can't help you. But
Right.
if you believe just a little bit and you want it, we are off to the races, and I can show you how to do it quick and easy. And to be able to just witness another person shorten the gap between a diagnosis, let's say if they do have cervical
Yeah. Yeah.
dystonia, or
Yeah.
let's say a woman who's never been able to stand up for herself in 70
Yeah.
years, like, to be able to, because I say, I do not care what you have done up until this point. It's a moot point. It's
Yeah.
irrelevant, because we
Yeah.
ain't going back there. We're going up here. And so I just love teaching. And now my mom says the tricks to work the magic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just so there's no price you could put on helping somebody cross this threshold of what they believe is impossible. Who said it? Was it Gandhi? You think it's impossible until it's done. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay to have those disbeliefs, but I got the goods. I got the receipts to bring you over the threshold
I
of
love
belief.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. And it's really about being open. Like, because sometimes they have to borrow your belief. Like, I know my clients, they don't really think that they can get to, a really successful practice, that this will really work for them. They kind of see all our success stories, and they're like, yeah, like, you helped that person and that person and that person. And they have a thriving and incredible practice, like beyond the wildest dreams. And so, like, well, maybe if that person can do it, I can too. But initially, um, they likely have to borrow a bit of your belief, and like you see it in them because you're like, yeah, I know this path like the back of my hand. I know I can get them there. So I know that's the way it is with my clients, and you're the same with your clients. But at the beginning, as long as they're open to it, they got to be open, and then they can borrow your belief until they have it for themselves. And I think that's uh, so don't worry if you're not like all in, like, I know it's going to work. We get it. Cause or I know I can be out of pain when you've been in pain for 7 years. Like it's a bit of a leap, right? It's a bit of a leap of faith there, but it helps to educate yourself and say, hey, there might be another option here, rather than struggling. What are some things that you learned a lot through your journey to get yourself out of pain and fear and anxiety and get your mobility back and get driving again? And because you weren't able to, um there were a lot of things you weren't able to do, and then you're able to do now. So you learned a lot through that cervical dystonia journey. What about now helping other people through their journey as a health coach? What have you learned just from working with your clients?
Well, I just have to say it's 4:44. So there's another nod there that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and having fun. So the biggest thing, because again, like when this landed at my doorstep, I have been meditating and grounding and being open, like you say, to possibilities. And even for me, still, I was like, what is this going on? And so the more that I studied quantum physics, neuroplasticity, mindset, I really what I know to be true is that we have to work with limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
which are all hanging out in the subconscious, which um the only way you would even know that you had a subconscious program that's not working for you is that you're doing all the things, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whether it's you're trying to lose weight or find your soulmate or get pregnant or whatever, and it's not working,
Yeah.
that is because you have some energetic things going on that are dictating your whole experience. So until we work with that, it's going to be impossible,
Yeah.
honestly, to break through that ceiling. And so I have had the privilege to learn about Dr. Bradley's work, energy healing, called emotion code, body code, and belief code. And we basically work with the person's subconscious and identify any trapped emotions, imbalances in the body, and then literally pluck out total belief systems that don't belong there, that are creating this incongruence. And I'm still flabbergasted by the results that my clients get, because what I'm teaching them are essentially energy principles
Yeah.
and awareness and these kinds of things. But that coupled with this other modality, it literally is quantum results. So
Yeah.
it's so powerful. So you have to work with your mind
Hmm.
if you want to have transformation.
Yeah, that's so good. You have overcome debilitating cervical dystonia, the pain, the anxiety, the fear of that, and now help others to do that. What's one of the common myths that you see people have when they're looking at solving the unsolvable? Like, when they're faced with this, what are some of the myths that you've seen?
The biggest one, and this is just human nature. So, I mean, we come by it honestly,
Mhm.
is we're pushing against the diagnosis. We are trying to get rid of I would call it the noose around my neck. I wanted to divorce it, break up with it, kill
Yeah.
it. Like
Yeah.
I was like, ah,
Yeah.
I'm excited for this. And so, in an energetic world, anything that we're saying no to, we're bringing into our experience. You
Mm-hmm.
know this. We love
Yeah.
Abraham.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, um, we don't, and I teach people to have tea with their dystonia, because until you have gratitude, until you can be here for the diamonds in the rough and the gems that, and like I believe nothing is an accident,
Mhm.
and it doesn't matter how horrific the situation is, there is always a bigger purpose at play. And if we can just hang in there,
Yeah.
whatever you got to do, pray, cuss, affirm, and just be open to, in my, what I teach my clients is the 3 C's: compassion, creativity, and curiosity. If you approach life through that lens, you're going to have a very different experience. And
Yeah.
so yes, you can have pain in this one breath, and then in 2 breaths later, you could have some joy. You could have some mobility. You could have some possibility. It's literally a moment by moment mindful presence that we really are going for. And when you're in the present, there's no suffering.
Yeah. Well, and you
So,
mentioned earlier about, one of the key things is that they have this disbelief that a different experience is possible. You talked about being really that Roger Bannister, breaking the 4-minute mile, doing that with cervical dystonia. So, but most people don't even know it's possible. So that kind of is a block as well. And just, yeah, so I think that would be another thing that would be getting in people's way.
oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah. Like, well, how could you look at me and tell me that you think it's possible to live with this or get over this or whatever? It's like, I understand because I have been there. And so what happens is, I believe diagnoses are great because they give you data. They give you data. What we choose to do with the data is very important. And so what people tend to do is they focus on the illness. They focus on
Mhm,
the dysfunction. And it's like, okay, let that be a bouncing point, a launch point.
mhm,
What do we prefer? So when I could not drive a car, when every single nanosecond of my experience when I was awake, I was obsessing my neck. Oh my God,
mhm.
my neck.
Yes,
And then it was like, okay. I started imagining what I was going to be doing when I didn't have dysfunction, when I had more mobility, when I
yeah,
had more relief, when I had more
yes,
hope. And that is literally, I mean, we're talking moment by moment, day by day. And I kept, visualization is a master mind technique. All the Olympic athletes use it because we have
yeah,
mirror neurons. If you mentally rehearse something in your brain, your body does not know the difference between physically doing the act and rehearsing it. So when you go to do it, so when you don't have pain and you can drive a car, your body's like, oh, we did this before. Oh,
yes,
so easy. And
yes,
so you have to train your mind, and it could be fun. Like,
yeah,
I just had fun with it. And it was like, we always have a choice, whether it's, even if it's the lesser of two evils. It's like, yes, this sucks. And what am I going to do about it? What do I want instead? How could I have tea with this? How could I, bring in some flowers or
yeah.
color in a book or,
And it's
you know,
kind of like, rather than fighting your illness, allowing your wellness is really, it's that shift in that focus. And I know that you spend a lot of time helping people overcome limiting beliefs, which all beliefs are limiting, but we just, they're a belief. So it's limited, but we have a belief in something. And by definition, it's limiting in
yeah,
some way. Sometimes it serves us, sometimes it doesn't. And getting to the emotional piece and that, because our issues are in our tissues. And so being able to address that part. I just want to reach out to the our listeners here again. And if you're wanting to connect with Lisbeth, we'll be sharing her contact information at the end. But have you overcome something, or have you noticed that mind over matter piece, or where emotions play a role in illness or wellness? Have you observed that? Have you noticed that? Do you know anyone with cervical dystonia? But just pop those things in the comments. We'd love to hear and connect with you. Um, how have you grown, Lisbeth, as a person, um, through the process of becoming a health coach? Because the one thing that I know is, like, it's a phenomenal personal development journey. Because as you work on yourself, you are a better coach. You can help more people better, easier, more fun. And so, I suppose all jobs could be like that, but some are more so than others. And this is really a great, opportunity. What things have you noticed as you've gone through this journey?
Well, being a recovering control perfectionist, everything has to be just right. I have just really learned how to lean into my authentic nature that is just it's really pure love. And I just like to I just have to show up. There's nothing that I have to like do. And I used to be a doer and a
Mhm.
pleaser. And it's like if I literally just go out into the world, I'm making a difference because I'm positive. I have a miracle consciousness,
Mhm.
and I don't just give lip service. I just be the change.
Yes.
And I'm not. And I mean, I spent 50 years like ego was the driver of this party. Okay, so I have so much more grounded empathy
Yes.
for other people and compassion. And it's like, it's not about, look at me, look at me. It's like, I see you and there's nothing that we need to change here. I witness you
Mhm.
and I can give you some tools that make it way more fun
Yeah.
and way shorter from here to here. And and I got your back. Like I one of the things that people say is you're like a breath of fresh air and there is zero judgment because I've done it too. Like
Yeah.
I get you 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. And it's not like it's when you use the word tool and tools, and it is tools, but also you talked about moment to moment, day by day, like you talk about that. So it's not a get a quick fix. It's not
No.
like a magic pill. Like, oh, you just take this and then you're all good. No, but the gift on the other side of that journey to really get through and transform caterpillar to butterfly transformation, we ain't going back the other way, uh, is so much better. It is a total transformation. Um, if you had to go back and talk to your former self, what would you tell your former self?
I would give her all the high fives, all the hugs, all the unicorns and say, "Girl, you are doing an amazing job. Keep having fun and know that you matter and your desires are important too."
Yeah. Now, I, would you always have said that to yourself like that?
I guess yes, because it's coming from my inner kids.
There you go. Yeah.
Or it's like that. Basically, it's like keep going. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I think so, yeah.
I guess what I mean is most people don't talk to themselves that way. Most people self-talk. I don't know about anybody listening, but you're like, man, you're amazing. You got this. You got it going on. The narrative that runs in our head can sometimes be very different than that. And that's been a journey, I would imagine, to go from you mentioned, 50 years of doing it this other way and then to this. Uh, was that a journey to be able to talk nicely to yourself?
Yes, I mean, basically the way that I can describe it is I had to domesticate my ego
Mhm.
because yeah, the ego is going to try to take you down every single time you try to become the butterfly. Every single time.
So
And
to keep you safe. You don't
yeah, it's
fly
like
out there. You never know what happens,
yeah,
right? So I'm trying to keep
you just have to give it a job to watch the waves because you got
yeah.
it from here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, awesome. Well, one of my favorite questions to ask is about spin-off benefits. Because one, I know the whole body is all connected, and when you help one thing over here, some other things get better. Do you have any client stories to share with us where you guys were focused on one thing and then these other things got better in the process?
Yeah, so I do have a couple examples. One is a client who she happens to be a recovering alcoholic, and so for that reason has some tendencies, right, or addictive
Yeah,
behaviors. And one of them was, focusing on the negative, like the human mind likes to do,
yeah,
and really helping her shift her entire mindset and help her reset her nervous system so she wasn't always in this fight or flight or free situation that most
yeah.
humans are in these days.
Mm.
she not only did she become more, her equilibrium was just so like calm and consistent. She lost 17 pounds and dropped two like dress sizes. And um, she's just happy most
Yeah.
of the time. And I wasn't expecting that, the weight loss. And it's interesting, about weight. It literally is a manifestation of a protection,
Yes.
because again, it's some kind of belief that's
Yeah.
going on that is not.
Yeah.
So that was one. Another one of my clients actually who did have cervical dystonia. She was a full-time mom, two kids, and she was like, I just want to be able to live with a little bit more ease in my life. Plus she's got the cervical dystonia. Well, and she also had a history of panic and high blood pressure, and she started to be able to just again be more even keeled and not going into this like worst case scenario situation. And one of the things with her dystonia, she could not drive a car at nighttime. She had so much anxiety, there was a lot of mobility issues. And I'll never forget when she told me the story. They were out at shopping and she was with her mom, and she like went to get in the car to drive, and her mom was like, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "I'm good." And so when she told me that, I was just like, "Oh my," because I know what it's like when your freedom is taken away when you cannot drive yourself places.
Yeah.
Um, and also, side benefit for her, one of the things that she had trouble was with focus and organization, and she was also leading teams at work, and she felt like she was underperforming. And her manager called her out and was like, "You are doing a phenomenal job." She basically got a promotion, and due to her ability to just like lead and have more focus, and even her husband and her kids they were like, "We don't know what's going on, but something's different." When the
Yeah.
people that are in your vortex all the time, it's like one of my coaches said, you can't see the color of your own eyes, right? When you're too close to something, you can't appreciate the brevity or whatever. And then another one of my clients, really a lifetime of not being able to stand up for herself. She
Yeah.
is able to stand up for herself in ways that she couldn't before. And I mean, in doing things for herself that she never would have imagined. And it's just so liberating for her. And
Yeah.
it's just anyway,
And
it's just
especially when,
amazing.
and yeah, when people have a lifetime of one way, um, they want to be able to have better boundaries or be able to have better self-esteem or stand up for themselves. But if you've got a lifetime of not doing so, it's a really good chance that you could use a little support through that,
Yeah.
to kind of like, guide you through it, because we're reprogramming an old way of being. And what a tremendous gift. I mean, better late than never. I mean, those, I just
Yeah.
love all of those stories. And so I love how, whole families get better, people are better organized at work, and people start noticing. And I just think that's, you start helping with cervical dystonia, or in some case, people are coming to you for some other issues. Uh, and then there's just this ripple effect of all of these amazing things that come from that. So I just love that. How can people get in touch with you, Lisbeth?
So my website is cervicaldystoniacoach.com. That's the best way to find me. And then you can also find me on Instagram. And I have a unique spelling because I am a unicorn. Lisbeth is Lisbeth Overton, Overton.
Okay, so Lisbeth with an L, Lisbeth Overton on Instagram, and cervical dystonia coach.com. I'll spell Cervical, and then dystonia is Dystonia. We always do a spelling bee, but cervical dystonia coach.com. Check it out. She's got a starter kit there. Lisbeth is the real deal. She really is. And I really love how she's been able to alchemize this pain into purpose, and just really accomplish some really, incredible and amazing things. So I just want to commend you on all that you've done, and for you out there for listening and for tuning in. And if you are struggling with something in your life where you're like, as Lisbeth said, you've done all the things, and maybe you're in corporate or something like that, and you're looking at how can I get rid of corporate burnout. I want you to tune in and listen to this other interview that we did with Lynn Wong. She's a fantastic coach who helps people with corporate burnout. And especially if you know of anyone with cervical dystonia, send them over to Lisbeth. Have them check this out. Give them the gift of hope and belief, if nothing else, and have them lean in. She's amazing. She'll knock your socks off. And so it was an absolute pleasure. So tune in if you like this video. Feel free to like and share this with others who might benefit from this video. We super appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks.
Be good for you.